again. You've stuck with it so far, so I'm quite impressed. Now, this one is about what's the difference between AC and DC. AC/DC, great band by the way, highly recommended. Saw them at Wembley once, brilliant. AC stands for alternating current and DC for direct current. And the difference is the way the voltage comes out. With AC, the voltage goes positive and then it goes negative and then back to positive again. And what that means is the current through the circuit starts flowing one way, then it stops, and then it starts flowing the other way, and stops and flowing back. And you do the work by sort of seesawing backwards and forwards all the time. With DC, that doesn't happen. The current just flows in one direction only. The voltage can vary a bit. So for instance, when you start your car in the morning, as you load up the battery with the starter motor, the voltage will drop down a bit to maybe 10 volts, and then the alternator will kick in and it will rise back up again, and then when you park the car it will slowly go flat by itself over a couple of weeks. So with DC the voltage can still vary, but it always stays positive and the current always only goes in one direction, and that's the difference between AC and DC. Now with electric vehicles we use a bit of both. Batteries can only ever provide DC. But the traction motors, the drive motor that makes the car go forward, will use AC. Well, I say that, there are some very small cars that use DC motors, but they're rubbish and we're not going to talk about them. So most decent electric cars use an AC motor. So it has to have some way of turning the DC into AC, and that's what the inverter does. It's a very clever piece of electronics, and it'll take high voltage DC from the batteries and convert that into the right AC signal to drive the drive motors. Even on a non-electric vehicle, we've still got a bit of AC in the car. Oh yes, because if you've got an alternator, the alternator produces AC. And there's a circuit on the back of it which then converts that into DC to run the rest of the vehicle. So there's a bit of both in your car, no matter whether it's an electric car or not. And it's worth knowing what the difference between the two is. And now you do. So that's good, isn't it?